Hello, everybody. My name is Jude Cornett, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to be talking about Calling Portland, some decks that I'm thinking about playing for Calling Portland, some decks that I think are good, but I probably won't be playing for Calling Portland, and at the end of it, I'm also going to be opening my gold foil from the ProQuest that I won 3 weeks ago on Count Your Blessings Enigma. Um, so, first of all, what is Calling Portland? Calling Portland is a large open entry event that's happening in my hometown in about a month from November 22nd to November 24th. It's a classic constructed tournament that's multiple days, and I'm going to be playing in it, and I'm hoping to do well in it. So, uh, a big part of doing well in a tournament like this is preparation. And so, I want to lock in a deck as soon as I can so that I can get as much practice on the deck. And to that end, I need to find a deck that I want to play. And so uh, the first thing that I looked at for that is I looked at what decks were doing well during this most recent ProQuest season. And so a lot of decks stand out. Um, some of those decks include Azalea. Azalea's a very strong aggressive deck and has been putting up a lot of numbers. Viserai with the new cards from Rosetta is very strong. You can output a lot of damage. With Reaping Blade, you kind of have some built-in anti-count your blessings advantage as well without having to commit any additional slots to your deck, which is not something that all aggro decks can say. And he presents split damage, which is just in general very, very strong. I think Kano's reasonable right now. There's more heroes are running hate for him, and there's also more arcane heroes in the format. However, he also got a new Fabled and Will of Arcana, and he got a lot of new cards in the set, so I think he's reasonable as well. KO and Zen don't haven't been doing so great this ProQuest season, but I actually still think Zen's pretty good. I'll talk more about that later. New has been putting up a lot of numbers in a more aggressive meta. A disruptive deck is very good, and New is one of the best disruptive decks. Enigma. Enigma is a very strong deck as well, as there's multiple builds. You can play CYB, you can play Standard Enigma. Additionally, you can tailor the deck to what you expect to see, and Enigma just fundamentally is a very powerful hero as well. Other heroes that have been doing well this season so far, Florian and Aurora, two of the new heroes. Aurora is a very consistent aggressive deck, and Florian is a deck that can be very defensive and almost plays like a Guardian, where you're kind of playing below rate for a decent majority of the game, but eventually either your opponent gets their second cycle and they're playing lots of blues, or you get your hero power online and now you're doing very fundamentally above rate things compared to what your opponent's able to do. And so a couple other heroes that aren't maybe necessarily represented in the data here is Ira, of course, because she's not out yet. I can't necessarily say whether Ira's good or not. From when I recorded this video, in about 3 or 4 days, there's going to be Worlds, and at Worlds, Ira's going to be legal for the calling at Worlds, which means that we will see how strong Ira ends up actually being. I think there's a very real chance that she's just incredibly powerful, and you either have to be able to beat Ira or play Ira, um, or think that you can very consistently beat all the other decks other than Ira. And so I think that's maybe where Kano is a bit better than his data suggests. Um, Additionally, uh, a deck that I played against at my last purchase of the season, which I think is also fairly reasonable, is Count Your Blessings New. It has more disruptive effects than Enigma does, while still being able to play similar Count Your Blessings game plan, which is fundamentally very powerful, in addition to having a very strong end game. With activating New a lot and banishing cards out of your opponent's deck, and also banishing cards out of their hand with Massive Recurring Nightmares. Um, Again, a lot of this is suspect to change due to Worlds, but this is kind of where I'm looking at pre-Worlds, and there's no better time to start getting reps in than now. So right now, there's several decks that I am looking at playing. Again, this is subject to change. If Ira's really really strong, there's a good chance I could just play Ira. Although personally, I don't find her gameplay super interesting from the games that I played already. But the first of those decks is Count Your Blessings Enigma. It was a deck that I already performed pretty well on. I feel like I'm pretty proficient at playing. And additionally, I think it's still pretty good right now. I think that this list probably needs to adapt at least somewhat into Dash.io, because this build was made for a pre-Dash.io meta. I think into Dash.io, the Count Your Blessings plan is just too slow. Dash.io games are only going to go maybe 8 to 10 turns at the maximum, and often less than that. And so there's no guarantee you're going to see all of your Count Your Blessings, let alone be able to resolve them all. So I think there probably has to be some shifts in what the build looks like. Probably some copies of Dense Blue Mist coming in, probably some copies of Hold the Line coming into the deck, and then your game plan into Dio is just going to be to cut some of your Count Your Blessings and just go incredibly tanky. And then additionally, you can set up Ward on a turn if they take off turns, and then you can also play Command and Conquers or Weakest Links on off turns as well. Another deck that's very good is Standard Enigma. This is Paulo Pintor's list. I don't know that I would play exactly this list if I were to play Standard Enigma, but I would probably start here because Paulo Pintor is a very good player. Has won a Pro Tour, obviously, has won a calling. I think he's won multiple callings, but I'm not 100% on that. Enigma is just a very strong deck. What you kind of give up with the standard build of Enigma versus Count Your Blessings is you're a little bit weaker into the aggressive decks. I think Fatigue, when it works, is one of the most consistent plans in the game, and CYB has that advantage. However, I'm expecting to see a lot of Enigma, which again we'll have to see for Worlds, but Enigma is a very strong deck right now, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a good amount of Enigma. Standard Enigma has a very big advantage into Count Your Blessings Enigma in the mirror, and so that's a big reason to play the deck. Additionally, just Enigma itself is a very fundamentally powerful deck, and a more proactive illusionists in general are very good because decks that people might play to counter other top decks, or just like other decks that don't generally see as much play, like decks such as Arachne, Azuri, Verdance, Vincent. I mean, Vincent maybe less so, but like Riptide, etc. All of those decks are decks that you could conceivably see at a calling. You might be less likely to, but you could still conceivably see those decks at a calling. And Enigma has a very strong, wide range of matchups into a lot of decks. Although she can struggle for sure into more aggressive decks. Okay. Next deck after that is Dash.io. It's very good right now. One of the marquee aggro decks of the format. You might not know this, but I actually played Dash.io at Pro Tour Amsterdam earlier this year. I was one of 2 players to day 2, although I did very, very poorly in draft and scrubbed out shortly after, but I went 5-2 in CC with Dash.io. Driving my last round to playing a side event. I wasn't in the money or anything, but I feel like that could be an advantage for sure, as if Dash.io is very, very strong, you're going to want to be able to be good at the mirror, and additionally, you will have an advantage playing Dash.io if you played her before the new cards from the Armory deck, because while the new cards are very powerful and there are some interesting permutations of lines with Dash.io, it doesn't fundamentally change the deck, in my opinion. Another deck that I think is quite good is Zen right now. This is Flesh and Bad's list. They're a local of mine, although they're moving very soon, so very sad about that. But this is a list of theirs. They took to top 8 at a ProQuest. I think that Zen is interesting right now because while he definitely is much less powerful than he was at the at his peak with Art of Wars and Stride and Bonds of Ancestry and all those cards, I think that because of Wax On and Wax Off, he's still a very powerful hero, and that's because of his anti-aggro potential. Because the thing about Zen states is they're very good into Rune Chance, and they're also very good into Dash.io fundamentally, just because they throw multiple attacks on a turn, they throw multiple sources of damage on a turn as well with Boom Grenades. And so with Wax On, Wax Off, I think you can somewhat reliably, and additionally getting a Zen state from Kasaya, you can make 2 or 3 Zen states in a game, and that will often allow you to fatigue your Dash.io opponents. And then with Viserai, I think it's less good, but still the sheer degree of sources of damage that they're sending at you means that Zen state is just going to be very fundamentally powerful into them as well. This seems like a little bit more of a meta pick for me. I think this is a deck that I could actually see doing very well at Worlds, additionally, because I think that Zen has a very strong Enigma matchup and a very strong Dash.io matchup. Although you can struggle sometimes just due to the inconsistency of the deck, and as well as new and Victor being very, very hard matchups now for the deck because you no longer have that explosive potential that you did before with Art of War. Um, but I do still think Zen's a very good deck. A couple other decks that I think are really good right now. I think Kano could potentially be very good, although I do believe that's kind of dependent on whether Ira ends up being good. The reason why I think that is because Ira is a slow deck, right? They're because of all the defense reactions that they run to get those really high value turn cycles. You can sometimes, or you can often even, struggle to fully convert a hand on offense. I think that Ira has tools to become better into Kano, like Oasis Respite, etc. Similar to Zen back when he was very good. Um, People kind of realized that Zen's only matchup that he could really consistently lose to is Kano. So you could, because all these other matchups were very, very good, you could commit a lot of sideboard slots to Kano. So there's potential that if that's the case with Ira, Kano becomes not a great pick again. But if Ira is a very powerful deck, I think Kano is probably pretty good into Ira. Especially because Ninja having to give up equipment for AB is always very powerful, and then additionally, her damage is capped, as I kind of said before. The last deck that I think is pretty good right now is Prism. This is Matt W's list in the Purple Discord. Full credit to them. I did not make this list, but I do think it's pretty good. Basically, the general thought of this list compared to more Vestige-based builds when Tome was legal is rather than running Vestige and trying to go for a big Aura Spectra game plan, that is much worse now that there is more Arcane in the format, specifically Viserai, because the idea was you get out Soraya, you get out preferably a Genesis, but sometimes it's okay to not have a Genesis, and then you get an Arclight Sentinel. And once you have Arclight Sentinel and Soraya out, your opponent has to kill their Arclight on their next turn, and then you get to keep Soraya and a 5-card hand, and then ideally win the game from there. And the issue with that is that against heroes like Viserai or the Runeblades, is that, or Dash AO, where they can just generate extra action points and break through your ALS, etc., is that they can threaten. When ALS doesn't fully stuff your opponent's next turn, it gets much, much weaker. And so to that end, we're running Empyrean Rapture, and we're going for a more aggressive Herald-based build. And then additionally, because we have all that extra room in our sideboard, we're able to run more copies of Angelic Wrath, which is very good in the Vestige matchups because hitting with Heralds is very important to be able to get our free Angel Flips. And then additionally, we get to run more sideboard cards like Warmonger's Diplomacy, That All You Got, and Erase Face. Erase Face and That All You Got are very good cards in Dash.io, as is Warmonger's Diplomacy. And I actually think that it's somewhat die roll dependent for sure because Prism definitely wants to go first and Dash.io definitely also wants to go first. But I think that in my testing so far, at least, Prism Dash.io has been slightly favored to pretty favored for Prism, and you still get that same additional illusionist value of just being fundamentally good into lesser played decks. Okay, some other decks that I think are probably good decks that, however, I think I probably won't be playing include Viserai, Azalea, New, Aurora, and Florian, and then a couple other decks to a lesser extent, but we'll talk about those when we get to those. So Viserai, I think, is a very strong deck. However, in general, I would not necessarily consider myself an aggro deck player. I think Viserai, additionally, struggles into Dash.io as you throw a lot of damage and you have access to some disruption and snuff out and succumb. But I think that since you aren't an aggro deck that can run Warmongers, you can struggle to disrupt Dash.io in a effective way. And if Dash.io isn't being disrupted, they can output some of the highest amounts of damage that any deck can output right now. And I think that while your Enigma matchup is good, the combination of your Dash.io matchup not being particularly amazing, and if a lot of people are playing Ira, I haven't played a ton of the Ira Viserai matchup, but I would imagine it's reasonable for Ira. I mean, Viserai only has so much armor, and you can still do the mid-range thing with Ira very, very well. I mean, that's what the deck is designed to do. And I'm not certain that Viserai can output enough damage to put Ira in a blocking pattern before they run out of armor and they have to start spending real cards on to deny mass triggers. And then if Ira is getting mass triggers, I'm pretty sure they just outvalue Viserai through um, them playing 4 or 5 card hands, because spending effectively one card to deal like 8 damage every turn is really good. Where you pitch a card, swing your Kodachi for 1, swing your Kodachi for 2, and then send a 1 for 5, draw a card off mask, and then redraw one of the 2 cards that you spent for that. Um, Especially stuff like Flick Flack, which is really good against decks that are presenting multiple attacks, etc. Um, Onto the next deck, Azalea. I think Azalea is really good right now as well. Again, I'm not the biggest aggro deck player. I actually did play Azalea earlier this year at US Nationals. I think Azalea is really strong and really good. However, it's just not really my style of deck, and I think it has similar problems into certain decks in the meta right now, where Enigma Azalea is is a very it's a very skill based matchup. Um, Azalea Aurora is a matchup that I would think is very Azalea favored, but in the games that I've seen in my ProQuest this season, that has seemed a lot closer than I would have expected, just considering the amount of armor that Aurora has and the amount of on-hits that they can present that are annoying for Azalea to deal with. Um, and the deck is also just a little bit less consistent, and it is a bit more vulnerable to fatigue. I think that Azalea has one of the toughest times of any of the aggro decks into Count Your Blessings, because even though you're hitting with all of these on-hits, um, in general, I find that the point in which you're actually able to present lethal is past the point where your opponent starts gaining ridiculous amounts of life with Count Your Blessings. So it really depends on that, but it doesn't feel like the kind of deck that I'm able to play into a very wide field and do very well with. Additionally, although I did play it at Nationals this year, I do still feel kind of inexperienced with the deck relative to these other decks that I've played quite a bit of. New, New is another really good deck. I think the biggest reason not to play New right now is simply that Enigma is really good. New is really strong into the aggressive decks, although I do think it can sometimes struggle into the Rune Blades a bit more, just because split damage is kind of an issue, and Viserai can often present not a ton of disruption, but New really wants to be keeping large hands to try and disrupt turn after turn after turn, and Face Purgatory can be very good against that. Additionally, like drawing additional cards off of Channel Lightning Valley in Aurora with Sigil of Suffering can be really good, and New doesn't really want to be blocking, and I think that Rune Blades can sometimes punish that with just with their very high numbers and additionally their large amount of armor. I think New is still really good. I'm not saying you shouldn't play New. I just think I probably won't be playing New. Aurora and Florian, I think they're I think they're good decks. Aurora got a lot of points this season. Aurora got 200, or Florian got 200, and Aurora got 345. Aurora actually was I believe overall either the second most winningest deck or the most winning deck after Enigma. Although I think Enigma also won a calling, so I don't know the exact numbers on that. But Aurora won a lot of ProQuest this season. I think Aurora is very good. I think Aurora stands to struggle into this newer meta for a couple reasons. I think that Aurora probably struggles quite a bit into Ira, and I also think that Aurora, unless you're able to have very powerful turns that end with a Warmongers to shut down the Dash AO's next turn, the Dash AO is just going to do more damage. Like, you can present consistent damage, but Dash AO will just present 30 damage one turn and then present another 30 damage the next turn, and then you'll be dead. And I'm not sure that the other advantages that Aurora has, like having a lot of armor, necessarily shore up that matchup. I do think it probably has a better Aurora probably has a better matchup into Enigma than Dash AO does, because if the Enigmas are packing Dense Blue Mist and hold the line and stuff like that, I think that Enigmas can fatigue Dash AO a reasonable amount of the time. Whereas with Aurora, I do think with CYB Enigma has a reasonable shot of fatiguing Aurora pretty consistently, unless they have very good Poison the Wells and are drawing quite well. But definitely have a much better shot into standard Enigma than Dash AO does, in my opinion. Okay. And then on to Florian. I think Florian, and then additionally, I also think Victor is kind of underrated right now, although his ProQuest results don't really reflect that. He only won 4 ProQuest this season. Guardians or pseudo Guardians like Florian are just they have good numbers. They kind of force your opponent to beat you rather than you're answering the questions rather than asking them. But additionally, your opponent has to ask the right questions at the right time. Otherwise, you're either going to get to your Earth stack of 8 Earth cards in Banish, and you're just going to start outvaluing your opponent, or Victor, you're just going to continue. If you get to the point where you got to draw 6 cards off of 6 clashes and make 10 to 15 mites off of Visigold in estate, Victor is going to win those games the vast majority of the time. There are decks that can keep up with him. Notably, I think Viserai can keep up with his numbers. A big reason to play Victor right now, I think, is because he has a very good Dash-AO matchup, and I actually think his Enigma matchup isn't as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. But new, at the same time, it feels like these decks, you're kind of forcing your opponent to beat you, and I think that at a level like the Calling, I want to be the person beating my opponent, not hoping that my opponent isn't able to beat me. And so to that end, I don't mind playing more controlling decks like Enigma, but I want to play a deck where it feels like my decisions matter, and it doesn't always feel like that's the case with Florian and Victor in my experience anyway. Okay. Other decks, I think KO was basically the best deck during heavy meta. It struggled a bit during MST meta because Zen was very good and Zen KO was very bad matchup. I played far too much KO during that season and I lost to Zen a lot of times. Another reason I think KO in theory should be good into this meta, but I think when you're looking at all these other aggressive decks that are in the meta right now, Viserai and Aurora and Dash.io, those decks are just doing what KO does more consistently. And KO he still has 2-card 9s. He still has Blood Rush Fellows turns that are very, very strong. He still has some of the best armor in the game. I might have said that already. But it feels like he's kind of outclassed when you factor in his inconsistency. I think that KO is very solidly 45% into a lot of the top decks, but unfortunately, I don't think you can win a tournament with 45% chance into every deck. You just have to get very, very lucky, which you can do with KO, but isn't something necessarily that I'm trying to do. All right, so that is about all I wanted to talk about today for regards to the meta going into Worlds and going into Calling Portland. Let's open a gold foil, shall we? So this is my gold foil that I won from my ProQuest. I was actually initially not going to open this gold foil, but I decided to after all the other ProQuests in my season happened, specifically because all the other ones that got opened in my area were not very good. And so I was like, this isn't actually how it works, but maybe if all the other ones were bad, that surely has to mean that mine is good, right? So yeah, I think I'm going to open it to the camera, and then I'll see it from there. Okay. Right here, I'll lift up the camera, and then I will see it when you do. Okay, Plume of Evergrowth, not great. It's actually better than it used to be because it's good with Verdance, but still not a great one. I suppose my streak of good luck had to come to an end sometime, since all the other ones that I previously opened have been very, very quite good. The first gold foil I opened was Nullrune Boots, and then Dawnblade, and then Iris of Reality. Iris is a little bit worse, but still all really good ones. Still pretty happy with it. I'm very happy that my CYB Enigma deck was able to do so well. Other than that, I don't think there's much else for this video. I'm planning on doing a tournament report sometime for my last 3 ProQuests. One of them went very well. The other 2 went very poorly. It was honestly my fault. I kept playing different decks. I probably should have just continued to play CYB Enigma because I think even with Dash.AO, CYB Enigma is very good right now. Yeah. Thank you for watching this video. I'm glad I was able to make it a little bit shorter than the last one, although I guess it wasn't really a deck tech. Let me know your thoughts about what decks are good and what decks are maybe less good right now after Ira comes out for Calling Portland. I'm very excited for Calling Portland. I'm also playing in the Fab Foundry City Series finale for Calling Portland. So I'll be doing that on the Friday, and then the calling on Saturday, and then hopefully calling on the Sunday. But if not, I'll be playing in the Battle Hardened as well. Um, and yep, that's about it. Thanks a bunch for watching.